Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv. Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili, Gianarakos, my friend. How you doing during this boring, slow off season as we hit that crawl of vacation time?
I'm doing well. In terms of NHL news, you're 100% right. Things are very slow. A lot of things are dwindling in terms of daily signings, things like that. So we have like one or two news items NHL wise per day right now, where we were kind of used to a lot more to kind of start off July. So it's a little bit boring, to be honest. Like I'm already ready for the regular season and all that to come around. So hopefully we get into that quickly, but should be a fun episode. We still have some good topics to discuss. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well, dude. Doing well. We were we like to cut ourselves off because we were talking about like free agency stuff already. Vasily and I always joke around that, we're like, oh, we might hit an hour. And as you guys notice, if you've been listening for a little bit, every episode is at least like an hour and a half. That wasn't like planned. We just noticed that every time we talk, it's about 90 minutes minimum. So, yeah, I kind of morphed into that. Eventually, it'll just keep crawling over. The more guests we have, the longer the podcast goes.
Yeah,
Um,
literally.
yeah. All right. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to like and subscribe, please, and thank you. Also hit the bell for reminders. It's extremely helpful just to be, just to make sure that that our episode is out. Again, they typically come out about midnight. Sometimes a little bit later. Just it's all processing stuff. If you ever see delays, it's because of scheduling stuff that we just can't avoid, and processing of video. And I've had video problems for sure. So, barring any of that, it should be out by midnight. And again, if you could go to Spotify and or iTunes, give us a rating. A review is also extremely helpful. Just helps drive our traffic up, and our traffic definitely has still been up. And again, can't thank you guys enough for that. It's been amazing. And again, we're gonna continue with content all through the summer, so we'll have the one episode a week for sure, and then we have plans to add more stuff. So that is coming as well. All right. So today we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. We'll talk about the Flyers pipeline, where it's ranked. We'll talk about Gendron and his new contract. Excuse me. We'll talk about Frost and his situation. Talk a little bit about Tony D, saying goodbye to him in a sense. A little bit of World Junior news. And then we're going to do a breakdown of the Flyers line predictions of what we think they're going to be essentially for like opening night. Again, this is a very early preview what we're going to be doing, but we're just going to have fun with it and just keep it a conversation. We'll use cap friendly. So those of you who are audio listeners, maybe a good idea to go back and, watch that portion on video. All right, Vasily, let's get into it. Oh, actually, I always forget this. Shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks on 4th and South. Please go check them out. They're still not open yet, but again, they will be open probably by the end of the summer. And it would be awesome after their unfortunate fire. Historic Jim Steaks. Go check them out, 4th and South. Okay, let's get started. So let's get into the pipeline stuff. There's Flyers had a really, really successful draft. At least early projections. They really knocked it out of the park. They filled in a bunch of voids in their lineup, and they took the right swings. So with that comes the interest in their pool again. The Flyers are now ranked 9th in a pipeline ranking. Vasily, I'll let you go through that.
Sure, yeah. So it's essentially an NHL Network prospect pool pipeline ranking that I'm grabbing from here. So I'll just read out the entire list. As Yariv said, the Flyers are listed at 9th, which based on the teams ahead of them, I'm interested at that ranking. So let me list them out for you here. So number 1, we have the Buffalo Sabres. Number 2, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 3, we have the Anaheim Ducks. Number 4, the Chicago Blackhawks. Number 5, the New Jersey Devils. Number 6, the Minnesota Wild. Number 7, the Nashville Predators. Number 8, the Detroit Red Wings. Number 9, is the Flyers. Number 10 is the Canadiens. 11 is San Jose Sharks. 12 is the Arizona Coyotes. 13th is the Seattle Kraken. 14th, the St. Louis Blues. 15th is the Dallas Stars. And 16th is the Carolina Hurricanes. So Flyers ninth amongst all those teams there. What do you think, Yariv, in terms of like the ninth overall ranking and just where they sit amongst the other teams?
First comment, the fact that Carolina is at 16th with how good they've been over the past few years just shows how well that roster has been managed. Yeah. How they're competitive and their pipeline is full. I mean, that's pretty fun.
Continue to draft well.
It's impressive. I think being ninth, I don't really care about these rankings anymore, and I don't blame people if they don't care about them, just because I was fooled by it like everybody else, right? Every scout's going, Flyers of the top three system. We watch that, and it doesn't manifest that. However, I will say that Michkov alone has clearly skyrocketed the interest in this team's depth. The depth there is really good. I would say if it was only Cutter Gauthier, they would not have us ranked within the top 10. But I think if you look at the fact that the Flyers have Cutter Gauthier, who has exceeded expectations, especially after his World's performance amongst men, and how strong of a showing he had and his projection and size, combination of him with Michkov. I mean, those are two grade A prospects, one of which is an A+ prospect in Michkov. So yeah, I think it sounds about right. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree, but I think it's more nuanced. Like I think San Jose would probably be ranked higher by some people than the Flyers, but like I know Russ Cohen would see it that way, but I don't. For me, it's all nuance and it doesn't really matter. I just love that we're getting attention again, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think you're 100% right. Without the Michkov, obviously selection, I don't think the Flyers probably touch the top 10 here. Personally, for me, like them at ninth, I'd probably have them ahead of the Red Wings, just because I think since the Red Wings have drafted Seider and Raymond, they haven't really had like a splash at the draft that kind of really grabs your attention there. So that's my, thought process with that. They have Marco Kasper, the Red Wings, and he's a good prospect, but I don't think he matches, to be honest, Gauthier or Michkov at all. Right. Like in terms of just where they're heading and what it looks like they might project to. Kasper's going to be really good too for the Red Wings. Same with Simon Edvinsson as well. But we'll see what happens. Ultimately, like you were saying, these are just rankings, and it's not something we should take too seriously. But it's definitely interesting to see that. In league circles, in terms of like scouts and people who really are watching these younger guys, that the Flyers are starting to kind of cement themselves again as one of the better prospect pools. But like you said, we have to be wary, right? Because we've seen in the past, Flyers had a top 3 prospect pool, even the top 1 at a certain point, and it didn't always translate to the NHL level. So there's always that possibility where, even though the prospect pool looks great, you never know how a player is going to play at the NHL level versus in junior. So
yeah, like weaknesses within the Flyers pool still, right? It's still at center. Cutter Gauthier is being developed as a center, so that one you hope. But outside of him, you don't have any other top 6 options in your system as of right now. Things could change. We don't know. Avon could shock people. I don't know, but they don't have anybody in the system there. They have some really nice depth at wing. They have good middle, I guess number 4 depth, 3 depth with the defenseman. That's great. And I will say their goaltending depth is probably amongst the league's best where they stand right now. So I would say that is probably what brought them up on that list. Goaltending and Michkov, Gauthier. I think Bonk is also should be taken seriously as a prospect, but he's going to take time probably to catch people's eye anyway. So I just can't see him bumping us up a ranking that much. Just because I don't know. I like what Steve was saying about him, how he's not as raw as I think, but I think just a defenseman like that, I just see like it's going to take time. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see how he develops. I use like Zach Bogosian as an example, right? Like he's a guy who was taken really high in the draft, projected to be a shutdown guy, but never put together like a two-way game really that matched that, right? So that's how I see Bonk is like, okay, well, we'll see how his two-way game plays out. If he's a 40.22, 24-minute defenseman, that's a top pairing guy. If he's a 20-point, 20-minute defenseman. That's a top 4 guy. And like, that's cool. But that's not enough to drive it home. So I just think with the D, the Flyers are pretty held back.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Obviously, like their defense has been lacking, and I think they've even admittedly said that they want to address that themselves. So I think looking to next draft with the 2 first-round picks, it's probably where they're gonna try to add there. But no, you're 100% right. Like it makes sense with the defense and just like where they're at. Just to add to Buffalo being number 1, I mean, and the Jackets, that makes a lot of sense to me. Just 1-2 there, like Buffalo was drafted,
especially with the
high.
recent,
Yeah. How off is Buffalo draft in the top 10 in the last 10 seasons? Like, so you just add that in, and I mean, they have a lot of prospects that are highly touted. Will it translate for them? That's kind of been their issue, right? So, but it's an interesting list for sure.
They'd be a smart team for the Flyers to deal with because they're going to be looking to get competitive and they have a deep pool. And they're going to look to get probably this year, I'd imagine, is the year that they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to be good this year. Like,
this is our playoff year, yeah.
Dahlin's ready, what's his name in the middle?
Tage Thompson.
Thank you. Tage Thompson is exceptional. I love him. Dylan Cousins is awesome. They got
some young guys like JJ Peterka, Quinn as well.
Yeah, Skinner's back. Again, I don't believe Carter Hart's getting traded. I don't know what's going on with this Team Canada stuff. I really don't. But I will say this. I could see them being a team interested in somebody like Carter Hart. I know they have Devin Levi. But again, they'd have the assets to get him. He's very young, but they have the assets. And they don't necessarily have to trade Devin Levi to us, right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's all I'm saying.
Interesting thought.
That's all I'm saying about a team who wants to go to the next level. I don't even want to trade Carter Hart. I'll make that clear, whether he's guilty or not guilty, or I have no idea. I don't even want to comment on that stuff because that's not my expertise. But as far as the sheer hockey player element, I'm not that interested in creating a question mark unless I'm blown away by the offer. A team like Buffalo could blow me away with an offer. That's what I'm saying. There are teams out there with depth that are competitive that they could blow teams away with an offer and they could win bids. And handedly with the assets. So I don't know. I like these lists. I mean, it just makes us aware of who, what young players we should be looking at. That's the fun part of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting with the Buffalo Heart stuff. Like, I'm the same thing. I don't really want the Flyers to trade him. I think it would be asinine just in terms of the fact that you've been looking for your starter for so long and now you're trading him away. But as you said, if the Sabres or any team for that matter really blows you away with an offer, you're in a position right now where you have to actually consider it. So we'll see what happens with Hart.
You have to consider almost outside of Michkov and Cutter Gauthier. I mean, you really can't exclude trading anyone. Even the 2 of them, you can't exclude trading. But again, it's just, what is the offer, right? I'm just throwing out a complete bullshit thing here. So I don't think Chicago would ever do this. But Chicago offers you Connor Bedard for Michkov and Gauthier,
And you're thinking about it.
You're not going to be like, oh, I said I would never trade these guys. You're going to be like, okay, this is
a trade that we're likely doing right now. So.
Yeah. And again, I don't even know if Michkov will be worse than Bedard, but just the guarantee you have him this year. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a random thing. You just always have to be ready. To move any asset at any point. I think that's what Danny Briere's been trying to express when he makes that statement. I think people are overthinking it a little bit. Like they think he's like secretly mentioning specific players. So I think everybody's available and everybody's being shopped. But I think it's more of just like, we're not a good team. We need to make moves. There are holes all through this lineup. Like you look at what the Flyers did and picked up Bjarnason and Zverjin. I mean, like, they have a really deep goaltending pool. They didn't do that for no reason. They didn't do that just because Carter Hart is a risk. They did that because that's a position of strength. That's what everything's all about. If you have a strong prospect pool, you have picks, you have cap space.
You can deal from that position of strength in a lot of different facets. Just depends on when you want to use those assets and what you want to use them for.
If the Coyotes didn't have financial problems, the amount of assets that they have, and available cap space, you could turn that franchise around in a couple of years.
Yeah,
with all the they just can't. They don't have money. They can't. Nobody's going to play, and players aren't going to want to go there. Like Michkov didn't want to go there for a reason. And I said it on this podcast. If you are a prized player and you have an option, are you going to want to go to an organization that might be a different organization by the time you get to the NHL? Because no,
not at all. Yeah.
If you don't have any leverage and just the average draft pick, you're going to just, okay, cool. It's an NHL team, sweet. Whatever NHL team ends up with me. But if you're Michkov, you had an option, you take it. So speaking of which, just transition really quickly into this. If people haven't had a chance to watch it, the Flyers did release Flyers liftoff. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but it was a nice breakdown of the draft. They went through Michkov, Bonk, and then all the other picks afterwards got kind of like their little moment. Just really nice shots and some stuff within the room. Not a lot of info in there as far as like inside access, but there is one really interesting line I thought it related to what we were talking about. And there's a moment where Danny Briere is looking at the scouting group and he's just making this statement. He goes, "Is there anybody in this room that doesn't think Michkov is a top 5 player in this draft?" And you can see he just holds it there for like a few seconds. He's just looking around. Nobody reacts. And he goes, "All right." And you could just see I can tell why they gave us that one preview. If it's real, if the footage is real. Because I think that is real. I think that they really looked at Michkov and being like, this is a can't miss prospect from a talent and on ice aspect.
Well, I believe, Yariv, you mentioned this too, like on 32 Thoughts, they had Chuck Fletcher on, and he even said, well, when he was still the GM, the Flyers had Michkov on their board at number 2. So I think the scouts from the Flyers end have always kind of ranked him high. And just to add on, I mean, because it's pretty related, Scott Wheeler, who's like the prospect guru for The Athletic, he mentioned this in one of his latest pieces, but he essentially said that Michkov, in his opinion, is the best Russian prospect since Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Malkin back in 2004. On talent, upside, and pedigree, he's going to be a prolific point-producing star in the NHL. I mean, that's not new news for us, but I just thought, add to the Michkov train, add to the hype there. But yeah. Can't go wrong with that pick.
I still don't understand why he's not talked about. Like, I get the Russia factor, but why do people talk about his game as if it's like not a generational? Like, don't talk about it as if it's a question mark. Oh, this guy could be a star player. Say what it is. He could be a generational player.
Well, yeah.
And the issue is the Russia thing.
If you're comparing him to Ovechkin and Malkin, like, what are they, generational?
They're generating. I would say both fall into that category.
Agreed. Yeah.
So Malkin does as much as Draisaitl does.
Yeah, 100%, and was as crucial in the Cup wins for Pittsburgh. So I think
franchise player.
I agree. Like, I think it's probably just the Russia factor and the unknown and the fact that he's not going to be here for 2-3 years potentially. Whereas, like, you have Bedard, he's here, you're going to see him. So people are like, okay, yes, generational. Whereas Michkov, they're kind of reserved on putting that tag there, right?
Honestly, for the better, dude. Like, I don't really care if people label him, or I just want him to produce when he's here. Even if, let's say we're wrong, he's not generational and he's just a top line winger, great.
That's still what I mean? Not bad. Yeah, exactly.
Like, great. It's really not the end of the world. We can't afford like a bust type of, we can't afford a Nolan Patrick injury, 100%. Career is over type of. And I know Patrick's about to get I think he's getting a second opportunity right now with Nashville. No, that's wrong.
Who?
Somebody gave him a contract.
Patrick?
Yeah.
No, I didn't sign anywhere.
Are you sure? I thought I saw you sign somewhere.
Pretty sure, yeah. No,
I'll have to double check what I saw. Maybe I just completely made it up in my head. It's possible. Wishful thinking, because I do wish him the best.
Yeah, it sucks what happened to him. But
yeah, dude.
Man?
Dude, Flyers luck. All right. Let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk a little bit about newcomer Alexis Gendron. If those who are not aware, Alexis Gendron, we've been following him tight. He is a goal scoring machine in the queue. Pretty much had a goal a game and over a goal. I think over a goal game in the playoffs. I didn't look at his just around the goal game. Maybe slightly below actually in the playoffs. But he was one of the most prolific goal scorers in junior hockey. Again, don't compare the Q exactly the same to the OHL and WHL. It's a little bit different. I won't say the numbers are 1-for-1, but he did exceed expectations goal scoring wise, and without a doubt, earned himself an ELC for a very late pick. I think he was a 6th round pick. Am I right
Seventh
about
round pick.
7th round pick? Yeah.
220th overall in the 2022 draft.
Thank you.
So for
Go ahead.
Gendron, Yariv, I think, I mean, it's a no-brainer to give him a contract at this point. Obviously, seventh
Oh,
round pick.
let me just say this. Sorry, 3-year deal. What was it? 800. Oh my God, why can't I find him? 860,000 a year. Sorry, continue.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries. So for Gendron, I think it's a no-brainer. Like I was saying, I mean, he's a seventh round pick for you, and he's putting up goal a game pace. Like, why wouldn't you offer him a contract? And he's doing it at the most crucial points. Like, for example, right? Like he started off the season in Blainville, Boisbriand Armada. So they're not a very good team in the queue. Still, though, I mean, he had 22 goals in 29 games for them and 34 points in 29 games. So over a point a game and almost a goal a game as well. Then he got traded halfway through the season to Gatineau Olympiques. And Gatineau, I mean, is one of the best teams, obviously, in the queue. And he had 33 goals in 34 games, 47 points in 34 games. So it just shows, obviously, like when you play with better players on a better team, you're naturally going to put up better numbers as he did, right? And then in the playoffs, he had 14 goals in 13 games, so over a goal a game, 19
That's
points
right.
in 13 games as well. I watched actually a couple games of him in the playoffs because it was on TV, and I was like, "Oh, Gatineau's playing. He's on Gatineau. Like, let me just give it a look and see." What I will notice is for a seventh round pick, this is typically not the case. He's a really good skater. Usually you don't find that, which I thought was kind of interesting. I noticed he was really quick. He would separate himself a lot. He has a good shot, a really good shot as well. Obviously, he's just scoring at that pace. Well, like you were saying, we got to kind of take into consideration the QMJHL has been known to not be the greatest defensive league over the past decade versus like the WHL and the OHL and even the USHL too. So like you got to take it with a grain of salt. And the fact that this is draft plus 1 year too, so he's also playing against players that are younger than him at this point. So that all factors in. But I mean, if you're putting up numbers like this as a seventh round pick, it's something probably the Flyers didn't expect, to be honest. Because think about right last season he had only 30 goals in 66 games. Whereas this season he had 55 goals, I believe, total. So like that's a huge jump
Yeah.
in 1 year. So you see that, and the Flyers are probably like, okay, this kid is serious. I think he was at Dev Camp, I believe, as well, and he looked pretty decent there too. So it'll be interesting. Like I don't think he's going to go back to the Q. I mean, he has 4 seasons there. I would be surprised. So I would assume, I mean, he'll be in the AHL and then see what he does from there, right? Like I'm actually very interested to take a look at his development because I mean he has a father who's playing the NHL, so I'm sure that his father is giving him some wisdom in terms of like what he needs to do to kind of acclimate himself to the pro level. So with players like that who have like fathers who play in the NHL and also are late round picks, like I'm just interested to see the development path because typically, I mean, a guy who's scoring 55 goals a season as a seventh rounder, like you usually don't see that very often. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what will change his destiny is his ability to two-way play.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's why he was a 7th round pick. I will say I remember seeing him at Dev Camp. His shot was ridiculous even a while back ago. So like seeing he had the scoring touch, without a doubt. So I'm not saying I expected this, but his numbers are big. I will say I was a little surprised he got an ELC.
I was as
But
well, yeah.
when I reviewed the Phantoms and I reviewed the wingers available, there actually is a need at wing. Not so much on the right side, on the left side, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I think it's actually really exciting. I mean, him and Avon now in the minors too.
Yeah.
I look, it's not
Their speed
Denoyer.
together is interesting to me.
Yeah, and Tuamala as well. It's not Denoyer, Bobby Brink, and Forrester, but it's still, again, here's another wave of 20 year olds, right? That are coming
Flyers
in.
drafted, yeah.
Yeah, that the Flyers drafted that all have upside to be scorers or, play at the NHL level. So that's
I
cool.
think too with Gendron his knocker, he was like you were saying, like defensive play, and then from what I read as well, just from scouting reports, it was like the transitional neutral zone play. Apparently, like his
Yeah.
positioning isn't the greatest, but that's any guy usually who's like an offensive dynamo in junior. Their defense lacks a bit, so like
Yeah.
at the AHL level, I'm assuming LaPerriere is going to try to instill a few things in him, at least to get the two-way play improved there. So
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. It's up to him on how he develops, but still exciting. I like it.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to another player who's still waiting for a contract. We'll touch on this a little bit. There's not too much to update here, but Morgan Frost's contract still looms. He is the only restricted free agent remaining that has no contract. Again, I don't expect this to be a big deal, but I do understand that a little bit of a hold off. Um, I still expect him to get signed. My expectation is still around 2.5 million. I don't know, 2, 3 years. I expect two, but if he's holding out right now, maybe he wants a long-term deal. In that case, maybe it's going to be slightly different. You have an example here, Vasili.
Yes.
You want to bring that up and we'll use that as a comparison?
Sure. So my example is E2 Lusterinen. I mean, a little bit different just in terms of like where he was drafted. He was a second round pick, 42 overall in the 2017 NHL draft. So Frost is obviously your first round pick. So sometimes that can have an effect just in terms of these contract negotiations. But if you look at it, like he's 24 years old, similar age to Frost. And this past season in 82 games, he had 17 goals, 26 assists, and 43 points. I believe Frost had 46 points. And Luosterainen just signed a $3 million AAV per season deal for the next 3 seasons. So that's 3 million cap hit for the next 3 years for Florida. So I just thought that's something interesting to bring up. Maybe if the Flyers don't go long term here, that's the comparable they look at to say, hey, well, Luosterainen just got this. This is what we compare your value to essentially. And Luosterainen was also a big factor for the Panthers in their playoff run as well. He played really well. He had 5 points in 16 games for them in the playoffs. So yeah, so it's interesting because I look at his kind of development, like in 2020, 2021, Luosterainen had 8 points in 44 games played for the Panthers. 2021-22, he had 26 points in 78 games for the Panthers. And then this season was kind of his breakout, and he had 17 goals and 26 assists for the 43 points. So it's kind of similar to Frost, where he had a little bit of a taste last season under Mike Yeo, put up a little bit of points, a little bit of a taste the year before. And you kind of see incremental improvement. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up. I think
Yeah.
it's very similar just in terms of like where they were drafted, their age, all that. So if it's not a long-term deal, I think something like this could be maybe what the Flyers aim for potentially. My thoughts, Yariv, is like what you were saying. Like if something hasn't been reached as of yet, I just, in my mind, as the wheels are spinning, I'm thinking, okay, does this mean long-term deal? I don't
Yeah.
know, but we'll see. I think for the Flyers, it would benefit them to go long-term with Frost, but
Because,
obviously, who knows?
yeah, if it's long term, he'll have to get more than three. If it's longer than 3 years, he'll get more than three a year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really don't know what they're gonna do. We'll see what Frost forces them to do. Just considering, he doesn't have that much leverage, but he does have the leverage of waiting, through the summer here. I doubt that this is going to be an issue going into camp or something like that. But if it is, I imagine he'll get traded. To be honest.
Yeah, I could see
Uh,
it.
yeah. So yeah. Well, good luck to Frost, and I'm sure that deal will be done probably out of nowhere in the middle of the summer.
Most likely, sometime in August, I'm guessing, or even who even knows? Now that we're saying this, he's gonna get signed like while we're recording this podcast. So.
Yeah, right. Ain't good. All right. Next topic we have is a little bit update on Tony DeAngelo. So DeAngelo obviously was bought out by the Flyers. They now retain a $1.6 million cap hit for the next 2 years. And Tony DeAngelo is now free to sign with the Canes. He signed with the Canes for the exact buyout cost. I wonder if that was to mock us. 1 year, $1.6 million. And I wouldn't put it past their GM. I'll just say that. At least their owner, maybe not their GM. So 1 year, 1.6 million for Tony D. I would imagine that pulls them out of the Erik Karlsson race, and they admit defeat on that and go with the cheaper option there in DeAngelo, which is a zero risk contract for them in a 1 year deal. So, yeah, good luck to Tony D. I hope he recovers his career once again and gets himself another contract. He's got talent, just didn't fit in here.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. The funniest part when I saw that he signed for 1.6 is just like he lost a certain amount of money with the buyout, and him signing for this 1.6 essentially recoups whatever he lost. So it's just funny. It's like they made him whole basically.
Yeah,
like
maybe that's what he was asking for.
Yeah, it's possible. But I think it's a steal for Carolina. I mean, he almost put up what 50 points last year, or
Yeah.
close to that, and for only 1.6 million to have a defenseman like that in your lineup, I mean, there's really no risk, and with the depth that they have, you can really shield him, right? Because like think about their blue line is one of the the best, I would say, in the NHL if you look at it depth wise, and the fact that I mean you have DeAngelo probably playing as in a number 6 role is kind of insane to me.
Hmm.
Like typically, I mean he'd be a little bit higher and be a number 5, something like that, but just the fact that he's number 6 on their D just speaks to the depth. One thing that was interesting, and I don't think this was a revelation for anybody, but Tony D had his presser with like the Kane's media and all of that, I believe, yesterday. So I just wanted to bring this up. DeAngelo explained the reason for his dismissal from the Flyers was his riff with head coach Tortorella. This is the exact quote from Tony. He said, obviously, the coach and I wound up not fitting together. I guess that would be the main reason for leaving the team and being a free agent again, DeAngelo told reporters. He also said, I've been bought out again, which is disappointing, but there were different factors that led to this a little bit. As far as the controversy, I feel like that's in the past. I guess there was controversy this year, you could call it, but it's just not being on the same page as the head coach. There's no personal feelings, nothing personal happened or something big that led to anything. It was kind of just a mutual disagreement on a bunch of things that I won't get into. So I think just based off of that, it's basically what we alluded to in the past. Like obviously him and Torts weren't working, and the Flyers weren't willing to go into the season with that relationship on the fritz again, essentially, just because
Hmm.
I'd imagine, I mean, it's gonna lead to a downturn in morale in the locker room, things along those lines. What's interesting to me about this all is like, why did I guess the Canes didn't make the trade because they got him cheaper. Like you would have had him at 2.5 if they retained salary on him. Now you got him at 1.6. It's just funny to me that like the NHL basically like not allowing the trade to go through due to the cap circumvention and the fact a year never passed and all the collusion basically fucked the Flyers in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at it in a certain way. But to be honest, I think for them, it might be better that it ended up this way because they have the retention slots now. So
Yeah.
with 2 extra retention slots, who knows? If you retain, let's say on like a certain player, you get back, or you can retain extra on certain players you're trying to move out. Maybe that increases like the assets you'll get at the deadline for like some of
Yeah.
these expiring guys, like a Sean Walker or like even a Cal Peterson or whoever it may be. They might try to move. But it could help them down the line. So I get it from both perspectives, like why you would want the buyout and why you would want to trade him. But I think at the end of the day, like having a $1.6 million cap hit next season isn't going to kill this team. So they're likely not going to need to spend in the cap anyhow. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like I said at the time, it was a shrewd move. It was a no nonsense move, and he just made what again. He took the matters into his own hand, and I can appreciate that.
yeah,
And he didn't hurt your team. It's not like it was a terrible buyout. It's a buyout
yeah,
you can eat. You already have to eat the massive buyout from Kevin Hayes, right? Together combined, it's a good chunk of change. I think it's like slightly over 5 million. But again, for the next 2 years, should be fine. After that, we'll still have to deal with the Kevin Hayes buyout, and then that'll probably be a pain for the last year. Because I suspect by year 3 we'll be moving in the direction of adding a significant piece or two. That's my
yeah.
guess. Excuse me. All right, let's move on from Tony D. Little bit of news. We don't need to spend too much time on this because we kind of talked about it already. But 3 prospects are heading to the World Juniors, at least for an invite for the summer showcase. It'll be on July 27th. Cutter Gauthier, Devin Kaplan, and Cole Knuble all invited. I would say that Gauthier is a lock. The other 2 are tryouts.
Yeah.
But awesome that the other 2 got invited. I'm a little surprised about Knuble, but not based off of his production or his reputation, more just he was a late round pick and you don't usually see that. It just kind of adds to the fact that maybe they got a steal in Knuble here as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely agree. Like Gauthier is 100% a lock there. Obviously, he made the team last season for the US.
Yeah.
I'd expect like we should, I mean, hope anyway that he's going to rip it up at the World Juniors this season, coming up here. With
Probably why he
Kaplan,
missed Dev Camp too.
yeah, that could be too, right? Like you're going to this camp in a couple weeks, like played a lot of hockey. I mean, his team made it pretty far, and then in college, and then also the World Championships too. So you got to get a little bit of a break in there, obviously. Kaplan makes sense to me because he had a really good college season as well.
Yep.
So I obviously they're taking consideration of that. Like you
Bottom
said,
six role probably for
yeah,
Team USA.
yeah, and then Knuble is a surprise, but I don't know because I mean he is an overager, so I wonder if that factors into it a little bit in
Well,
terms of
he had really
all
good
this.
production, right? He was the
Yeah,
best player on his team. Steve gave us the lowdown, right? Like
yeah,
he wasn't. He's a guy who probably should have been drafted last year.
but just missed essentially.
Yeah,
So
seems like another Noah Cates type of situation, where he's got upside, he's got two-way play, he's got the smarts, and if the guy just improves in all of those things, he is a pro prospect.
yeah,
Like he doesn't have any glaring weaknesses, which is great. All right. Let's get into the fun part. And then we'll end on Flyers rumors. I'm gonna share my screen here. We'll get into the Flyers lineup. So what I did is I did something similar to the depth chart for those who watched that episode. This will be more about just current players on the team. Why did my lineup go away? Here it is. All right. All right. So we're gonna go through the lineup. I tried to add some non NHL eligible guys to here too for when we go to the Phantoms, just to show the depth because those names will be played at the AHL level most likely in that lineup. So, all right. So we'll go through the forwards first, forward group, then we'll do the D, and then we'll do the special teams. Actually, let's do the forwards, the power play. We'll do the D, and then penalty kill, and then we'll look at goaltending quickly. Obviously, shouldn't take too long, and then we'll go to the Phantoms. We'll take a look at that. All right.
awesome.
So forward group again. I'm throwing out, and for those who are listening, I made this on my own. Vasili and I looked at it briefly. We might move some stuff around, but we're gonna comment on what we think this lineup is gonna be around opening night. Again, this is way too early. This is without dev camp. This is without an off season. This is without updates on injuries, right? So we're making a bunch of assumptions here. This could definitely be different, but assuming, things are the way they are right now, just kind of made these assumptions just for some fun here. So, top line, Joel Farabee, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny. Second line, Cam Atkinson, Noah Cates, Owen Tippett. Third line, Scott Lawton, Morgan Frost, Tyson Forrester. Fourth line, Garrett Hathaway on the left side, Ryan Paling, Wade Allison. Extras, Delorier, and Tanner Lazinski. Vasily, I'll let you respond first.
Sure. So technically for this exercise, this is basically like the prediction of what we think the Flyers would do. We might add in some comments in terms of what we would do. But I think you're essentially nail on the head with this, or hitting the nail on the head with this, Yariv. Like when I look at the left wing depth, for example, center depth, right wing depth, I do believe that it would likely be a Farabee, Couturier, Konechny line to start. I mean, I know they've played together in the past and had some success, so it makes sense. The only difference I might say, or the difference that I see for, like, let's say Tortorella and his staff, is we know Tortorella loves Cam Atkinson. Just depending on how his camp is and how Farabee's camp is. Like, for example, if Farabee, let's say, has a little bit of a down camp and Atkinson like comes back and he shows, okay, he's fully healthy, all cylinders go, and he's like back to his old self, I could see Atkinson getting started with Couturier and Konechny. It's definitely a possibility, but who knows? In terms of the second line, I think that's pretty accurate as well. I don't really see much. Third line too. There's not much really to change. I think that's probably what we'll go with. As long as we assume that Frost will be on the team here, and then the fourth line too. Though I will say that they're probably going to have Delorier in, I would imagine. That's my thoughts. And the only other caveat I had is Frost and Cates, maybe you'd swap. I think we had the same kind of sentiments there. But who knows, because we know Tortorella loves Cates and isn't the biggest fan of Frost. Always he gave him some more credit as the season went along. So I'm kind of interested to see where it unfolds, but I think this is pretty close, to be honest, if we look at a prediction just without any knowledge of like injuries, what might happen, this is pretty close to what we'll probably see on opening night, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, I see combinations here possible too, right? Like
Yeah.
Cam Atkinson could stay on the right side. You could try Owen Tippett on the left side. Maybe you do Owen Tippett, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny, right? That's also potential. What if it's Owen Tippett, Couturier and Farabee also, and it's
Yeah.
TK Atkinson. Also, Atkinson and Farabee have had chemistry in the past. We've talked about that, and maybe you put Noah Cates in the middle of that, and that's why you shift Owen Tippett up. Then there's the X factor of Tyson Forrester. He would look really good next to all three of these centers. His game complements all of them in some kind of way. He could play a third line role with Noah Cates, in a more defense. I thought about that too. Like, what if it's Noah Cates, Scott Lawton, and Tyson Forrester? It's a pretty badass third line. That's a physical line who's really good at defense, two-way game, and they could bang and crash and score and shoot. It just lacks a little bit of play driving, and that's why I went with Frost, because I was like, okay, Forrester is a goal scorer. I'm not going to assume that he's not going to score this year. And Frost might be even a better play driver. Lawton played in the top six last year. He has some offensive punch, and he can compensate for, not that Morgan Frost was bad defensively, but he can compensate a little bit for that center position for the lack of, Frost doesn't have a lot of size. Forrester's got the size, but he's young, right? And I kind of thought like that's how you kind of balance that out. And then, Noah Cates can play against anybody in the world, right? We've seen it. He might not offensively drive play doing it, but defensively, he's sound. And that's why I was thinking Cam Atkinson can drive play, and Owen Tippett, we've seen, can drive play.
Definitely drive play.
The finisher, right? So I was like, both of those guys with Noah Cates safely watching everything in the middle. I was like, that's the reason why Travis Konechny liked playing with him, right? And I kind of saw, okay, well, Atkinson's not as good as TK, but he's comparable. So maybe you can put him with that. And then, I could see a case where Joel Farabee plays that instead of Atkinson too. But again, I just wanted more play driving, and I saw Atkinson more as a play driver than Joel Farabee. So the Farabee, who's a two-way goal scorer, you got Sean Couturier, who's just everything, right? He does it all.
Yeah.
Toolkit. And then Travis Konechny is your play driver, your goal scorer, and they're legit top-line players, both Couturier and TK. So this is how I kind of broke it out. The fourth line is the interesting run, right? So the reason I went with this rather than Delorier, because I'm like, okay, Delorier made this team when there wasn't as much depth. And again, I'm assuming that everybody's healthy. Yeah. If Atkinson's out, Delorier is 100% in. So the reason I went with this, initially I had Delorier, Hathaway, and Paling, and it's a bang and crash line. And Hathaway's got a scoring upside, but I'm like, but Wade Allison can do that too. I just think he's going to get a chance. I think the Flyers really want to see what they have in him. And the idea of developing Allison is really tempting, and to give him that shot where Tanner Luzinski, I think, is still on the outside. He could end up going through waivers. He might not even play for the Flyers. And Delorier, no matter what, is your 13, right?
He'll get some games for sure, even if he doesn't play every game. Yeah.
Right. And maybe Allison he's the one who's rotated out. And if Forrester doesn't make the team, it's without question, it's Allison. Hathaway could play the third line potentially over Allison too. But I just, with the way Forrester played last year, it could be wrong, but I just think Tortorella already likes him, and we'll get to the defense too. And I think that affects the defense also. I think he's going to give him that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Is there any specific lines like that you would want to see, let's say? Like, I know this is the prediction of like what we think this coaching staff will put together. Is there any specific lines like you specifically would want to see like certain players playing together?
I'd love to see Owen Tippett play with Couturier.
Okay.
For sure. And maybe it's a, TK Owen Tippett swap in some scenario like this, and same with Atkinson and Farabee, maybe. I don't know. I'm just throwing out an idea. And then the other one is Forrester for me, is like, could he play? I don't know if you want to put him on the left side, but could he play on the left side? Or does he bump up? Maybe it's, a crazy one would be Tyson Forrester, Owen Tippett, and Sean Couturier.
That would be interesting.
It just sounds cool. I don't know if it would work, but it sounds cool. It's a lot of size, a lot of scoring. You can play Couturier with pretty much anyone. You can play Noah Cates with anyone too.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you want to split up that top line and take your two top line players and split them up, I mean, I think Owen Tippett, Tyson Forrester, this is the deepest this team has been on the right wing in
a while.
In a while, especially when it comes to, Konechny being 26,
Yeah.
Tippett being 23 or 24, Forrester being what 21, Allison's 26,
Still room
25.
for growth,
Yeah, it's
typically.
like
So
they're all young. So that's cool.
yeah, for me, there's a couple combinations I've been itching to see. Like I've been saying for a while, I really want to see Tippett and Couturier together. I just think
Yeah.
like Couturier's ability to control play out there and kind of drive the play out of his own defensive zone. I just think that puck possession style, like that's something that Tippett can play off of with his speed and his
Yeah.
shot. So I'm interested to see that. So like definitely like what you mentioned, Tippett, Couturier, Konechny. Now that you mentioned uh Couturier, Tippett, Forster, that really intrigues me. You have one of those guys playing their off wing in that situation, but I just think you have two guys with
Tippett.
such a big shot. Like that would be tough, I think, for your other oppositions to defend, just because who are you keying in on, right? Like you leave Forster open, he'll burn you with his shot. You leave Tippett open, he'll burn you with his shot. And if you leave Couturier open, obviously he's shown the ability to score. So that just makes that's just very interesting to me. Another one that I think I want to see too is I'd love to see Frost, Forster, Tippett as well. I don't know if that'll happen because I mean, think about the defense on that type of line. Like, I don't know if Torch will trust them, but I just think for pure skill, pure fun, pure offense, it'd be interesting to think about, right? Like Frost is very creative. You put him with literally two guys that can rip the puck and are known to score a lot of goals. Like that could be a fun line to watch.
Yeah. I find it interesting. I've heard a lot of people make the assumption that Sean Couturier is going to play like second line or something
I
like
don't
that.
know about that.
Eh, Look, if he is not healthy, then yeah, they'll put him in the third line and try him. But if he's healthy, I I can't see it. I do not see a world where Tortorella goes, oh yeah, this guy's our second line guy. We'll bring him in slow.
Torch is gonna love him.
Yeah,
He's literally a
he
Torch
loves him
type
already. Yeah,
player.
yeah.
Like think about the details that Couturier pays attention to in his game, the
This is
defensive prowess. Like that's a Torch guy,
zero maintenance player,
one hundred
just like a
percent.
Matt Niskanen. Zero maintenance. You don't need to worry about his attitude. You don't need to worry about his smarts. You don't need to worry about his game. Only his health. That's the only thing, and
Yeah,
that's recent. So let's touch on the special teams a little bit here. So I made assumptions on the special teams just to assume with both of them, right? Like what we were doing last year, they're going to iterate on that to start the year.
yeah,
Things probably will change beyond that, but this is what I put together. So top power play unit, Owen Tippett on your left side, Sean Couturier down the middle, Morgan Frost on his off wing, both Frost and Tippett on their off wing. Frost setup man along the boards, Tippett obviously the finisher. Sean Couturier obviously in the slot. He's big, he's strong, and he can do everything around that. And then on the point, you have Travis Konechny lined up on his opposite side, also either for setup or for shooting, playing a very similar role to to Claude Giroux back in the day. And then Cam York, I'm assuming, is going to be running the top power play. We saw hints of that last year. It's a year later. I think there's a chance that it could be Sanheim or Emil Andre or what's his name? Oh my God, Igor Zamula. I don't know, but I think logically it's going to be Cam York start the year. And then the second unit, I found that the roles actually filled out really nicely, right? Noah Cates plays the same role that Sean Couturier plays. Joel Farabee will step into a similar role as Morgan Frost. He's not as good of a playmaker, but he can play make. He can shoot. He can do everything. He's good on the off wing. And he's also responsible. Tyson Forrester, you open him up on the left-hand side for a big bomb, just the way you would on Tippett. And he's also younger, so you give him second unit duties, assuming. And then Atkinson playing the same role that TK plays, again, similar player on the back end there, lefty for setup and shooting. He can do both, and he can play D, and he's fast. Same thing with TK, right? He can scoot and get back. And then Emil Andre, which again, very similar to Cam York, can play that role. And I thought either there, that'll be the mix of either Andre, Igor Zamula, or I'm sure even Rasmus Ristolainen will get a try on the power play again this year.
Sanheim too.
But most
Yeah.
likely it'll be Sanheim. And maybe it'll be Sanheim for sure to start the beginning of the year. I'm not entirely sure on that one. But go ahead. What do you think about the power play?
I would say, I mean, if you look at just how you're going to optimize your offense with what you have, this probably makes the most sense. I think for the Flyers, like Morgan Frost has been a player who's been really good on the power play at lower levels. I think they want to maybe try to unlock that in him. You put him with Couturier and you put him with Tippett, a guy he's had chemistry with in the past. I mean, I think that you might be taking a step towards doing that. I think they just need to give him consistency, and you'll see him produce on the power play. So I think this setup is pretty accurate as well. Like for number one, right? Like I personally love the fact that you have Tippett listed on his off wing there. I mean, you want to take advantage of that bomb of a one timer that he has, so it makes complete sense. I think they didn't utilize him as best as they could have last year on the power play. He didn't really play on that offside too often, actually, until the later half of the season. So I think there's some ability there for the Flyers to kind of utilize the skill set a bit more. I wonder if they'd have Konechny and Tippett switch, and have Tippett kind of be your bomb from the point, because I think his shot's better.
Yeah.
But it's, who knows, right? Like Konechny's shown too that he's been able, at least last season on the power play, he was getting it through to the net with more consistency, which was a critique of his before. Like on the power play, he usually would have trouble in prior seasons getting the puck to the net, a lot of block shots, a lot of missed shots. So we'll see, right? For the second power play, I think essentially a no-brainer as well. Like, just if you're going to fill it out, maybe Scott Laughton makes his way onto this unit just as a net front presence potentially. I know he had 5 power play goals last season. Laughton, his first time ever playing on the power play, so like it's interesting. I don't know if they try him there. I could see Laughton sneak in there. Personally, yeah. I mean, if Forster makes the team, it's the same thinking with Tippett, right? Like big right-handed shot on his offside, utilize that as best as you can. He has a rip of a shot, so try to get him as open for as many one-timers and in space as you can in the power play. Andre is the interesting one, because I think he's the wild card, obviously, to even make the team. But he's shown like that he can run a power play at the pro level in the SHL and do a pretty good job of it. So I think if he does make the team, like he's likely etched into one of these spots at some point. But if it isn't him, it'll be Sanheim most likely. So
yeah, no, I think so too. And I think, we'll go through the defense in a minute here, but that's obviously where the team, I mean, Andre is clear cut the team's second best offensive defenseman behind York as far as youth category. I mean, I'll give Sanheim a nod there for doing it at times, but they really lack offensive punch on the back end. It's gonna be a problem. So obviously they're gonna have to go with the extra forward. All right, let's go into the D. All right. So the D's, I would say, predictable and unpredictable at the exact same time. So I have Sanheim top unit with Rasmus Ristolainen. Again, I'm making an assumption based on how this team played in the past. I could absolutely see these pairings being different. I have Cam York with Sean Walker. I have Mark Stahl with Emil Andre. And I have Nick Seeler and Igor Zamula there on the bottom. So let me explain this a little more detail. Absolutely, I could see Cam York playing with Rasmus Ristolainen also, and Sanheim playing with Sean Walker, or a combination of Mark Stahl, or even if Emil Andre makes the team, him making his way up there, or Zamula. Now, I realized I put both Andre and Zamula on the right-hand side. I don't know if they're going to play the right-hand side. I don't know if Mark Stahl can play the right-hand side at all. And I know Nick Seeler can a little bit. The predictability part is we know the coach loves Nick Seeler. We don't know how Mark Stahl is going to do here. We don't know how Sean Walker is going to do here. We know we can't send Emil Andre back. Theoretically, we don't know that even 100% for sure yet. And then Igor Zamula is obviously a huge wild card, and we know that Tortorella likes him a lot also. So I do see, and I kind of ran this, I'm pretty sure the Flyers can roll in the beginning of the season with this many players and then eventually cut it down. And then like maybe Lizinski goes to waivers. But I can see the Flyers trying to hold 8 defensemen for a little bit. And trying to rotate these guys in. The one thing I do, and the caveat, I do suspect that maybe the Flyers will try Cam York on the top pairing first for play driving capabilities, but I just feel like they're going to test Sanheim at the same time. So what do you think about the D?
I think just based off everything we know right now without like training camp, because I think training camp's going to dictate a lot of the unknowns on the defense, to be honest, because there's a lot of guys in the mix that really weren't here last year. So depending on if your camp shit or not, like that might dictate where you're going to land or fall on the depth chart here, and where Torch is going to place you essentially. So You have Walker coming in, that's new. You have Stahl, coming in, that's new, despite being a veteran, obviously. And then you have like some young guys like Andre and Zamula. Zamula's not new. I mean, Torch knows him, but he still hasn't really had like a full cup of coffee for a very extended period of time in the NHL level at this point. First pair makes sense because, like, Sanheim and Ristolainen have played well together in the past. You don't really have a concrete number one pair, so you might as well try to put the best pair you can together that has shown some success in the past defending and has also been good up the ice in transition. So it makes sense to go back with old familiar, something that could work for you, right? Especially with a defense like this that is very thin. You have Cam York, obviously, with Walker. I mean, I see this as a possibility. I don't know, like, is Mark Stahl somebody that has to play on the left side? I don't really know, to be honest. But it's interesting. Like, I could see York and Stahl maybe if Stahl moves to the right side. Who knows? I could see York on the top here, like you said, with Risto, because he played with Risto a little bit last season as well, and they looked pretty good. And like you were saying, Yariv, like the play driving capabilities of York and just his passing prowess versus Sanheim might be more enticing to the Flyers, especially due to just the fact that Sanheim had a really down year last year. But I also think, like you're saying, like Torts wants to test probably Sanheim after everything that happened this summer. I think they're going to feed him minutes to start and see how it goes. If it goes downhill, then maybe we see York jump up there. Who knows? The bottom, like, four, like Mark Stahl, Andre Sealer, Zamula, like that's the interesting stuff for me. Like Andre, obviously, we know if he might not be able to play in the AHL if he doesn't make the Flyers. He might have to get loaned back to the SHL. So if they can't figure that out, I just think he's going to make the team. I don't think they want to lose him for a full year to the SHL. I think they want him here in North America. Zamula as well. Like the fact that he's waiver or not waiver exempt makes me think, like, you're right, Yariv. They're going to try to carry 8 defensemen as long as they possibly can here. Just to ensure they don't lose him. Like maybe they try to send, him through waivers and sneak him through. There's certain days where, like, if there's really enticing guys that got sent through, you might be able to sneak him as well. But who knows what will unfold there. The defense, I think, is more of a question mark for sure than the offense. But I do expect, like, Mark Stahl, being a guy who played for Torts in the past, like I think he'll be a mainstay. I doubt that we're going to see him miss a bunch of games. Nick Sealer too. Obviously, Torts loves him, so unless there's like a complete 180 in terms of his performance, I expect that he'll be in the lineup as well. So I wonder if Sean Walker, to be honest, might be like your 7th, just because.
Maybe I just don't want to assume that because he's outperformed Nick Sealer in the past.
Yeah, exactly. You never know. But to be fair, I mean, that was
and
Sealer's
he's right-handed.
that was Sealer's best season last year.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, he's been known to be more of an AHL guy versus an NHL guy. It could really be an outlier for him. We really don't know. He got the most minutes he ever had playing on a very bad team. So there's no telling, like, how Sealer's going to perform this year. He might not be as good as last season, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and there's no proof at this point that Briere is married to keeping Sealer around as
Fletcher is.
As Fletcher.
That Minnesota connection is not there anymore. So
yeah. And again, he might be a waiver guy also. Like, we make the assumption that he won't be, but we don't know what's going to happen at camp. I don't think he deserves it, but
who knows what happens too, like in terms of training camps with other teams and injuries, right? Like we know Sealer had some interest at the trade deadline from other teams. The Flyers know they have to keep Zamula, and there's basically already 8 guys here. They might think to themselves, well, we want to keep Zamula. We don't want to lose him through waivers. A team has an injury to a depth guy. They're calling about Sealer. They're going to give us like a 5th rounder for him. Let's get rid of Sealer. Like, who knows what's going to present itself, right?
I mean, I can tell you right now, and we'll get to the Phantoms in a few, there are no veterans on the Phantoms. So there are like none. Like everybody's in their mid-20s, maybe they're 27. There are no aging players on the Phantoms anymore. So if you want a little insight on how Danny Briere is approaching this, like
youth movement.
So that means, like I said earlier, if you're around 30, there's a good chance you won't be here long. Like, unless they brought you in now, right? With like Garrett Hathaway, right? Even Delorier. Like, we make an assumption he'll be here, but like, I mean, we like him. Everybody likes him, but he's not in the long-term plans. He doesn't hurt us to be here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
That's
he's gotta
even
go,
I mean
but
Garnett that's even Garnett Hathaway too. Like he signed a 2-year deal only and it's 2.375. Let's
yeah.
say like the Flyers hit the trade deadline, there's a team that loves Garnett Hathaway. You think they won't eat some salary and move him and get an
I
asset back? Like I definitely could see it.
I don't even know if you'd have to eat the salary on this
Yeah,
guy.
you might not have
To your
to.
point,
Yeah.
you might not have to even eat salary to get a return for him. And if that's the case, I know. I think Delorier is just a guy. It's like, okay, like we make an assumption that he has this long-term deal that he's going to be here the entire time, but he's an enforcer on this team. So it's like Ryan Reeves sits out a lot. So I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Nick Seeler might be sitting out. I don't know. I hear the way Flair talks about Emil Andre and the fact he was so good in the AHL that I'm like,
He's
you know,
penciled in here, I think, unless he
it,
really has a bad camp.
I just like if they're like, oh, do we risk losing Zamula, the 25-year-old defenseman, or do we, 20? I think he's 24. Actually, I think he's younger. The young defenseman, or do we risk losing Nick Seeler, who we know what he is? He's got 1 year left, and we're not going to re-sign him.
No brainer.
Right. Again, I don't know what they're going to do because again,
Yeah.
if Torts goes, Zamula's not ready, and if he's not ready, then maybe his time here's up.
Yeah, exactly. With all the
For
depth,
a while, so
all the depth there. So it's interesting. I think the forwards we predicted here are a lot closer. I think the defense. I think now that we've kind of talked it out, it's such a
it's a
question mark.
mess.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what they're gonna do? To be honest,
Because the pairings don't
work.
None of the pairings are good enough for the role that they're going to be in.
100%
paper right now.
Yeah.
The only X factor there. Well, there's two. The X factors are how much better is Cam York this year, right? He's a huge X factor. If he makes a jump that people don't expect, he could be a stud next year for all we know. And can Travis Sanheim get back to the point he played not last year, but the year before that with Ristolainen, where he looked like a legitimate top 3 defenseman? Then things look a little bit better for this group, but it really hinges a lot on those two guys. And you're putting it on one very young guy, and the other one on a guy who doesn't have a ceiling that's like a number 1 defenseman.
Yeah, and you're also placing these guys not in the most advantageous positions because they're going to likely be facing the top line players most of the nights here. So,
but if they play well as a group, like I could see a situation where Sean Walker and Travis Sanheim just works.
It could, yeah, definitely.
It just works. Sanheim's just on. York and Ristolainen just work.
Yeah, I'm interested for the D. I think that's the most interesting part of this roster for me right now, just to see what unfolds there.
Yeah.
Training camp will give us some more insight for sure.
And we didn't even mention, I assumed Ronnie Attard is not making this team because,
but who knows? Yeah.
Because he's waiver exempt and they can afford to drop him and he's bubble, but he could be in the mix.
Well, what if he has a really impressive camp? Like the team
power play needs help. He's got a humongous shot.
Yeah, the team holds Attard highly just in terms of his upside and what they eventually want him to be. So, like, I don't know, especially when you're in this rebuilding phase and let's say a guy like him really jumps off the page for you, like, would you want to give him a shot, right? So I think, like I said, there's just a lot of question marks with the young guys and even with how you're going to structure this defense in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. All right, let's talk about the penalty killing. So the penalty killing is pretty straightforward. I don't know why they only do 2 pairings for penalty kill because it's never true. There's always 3.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they used to do this in NHL, the video game. They finally fixed that because it doesn't make sense because teams rotate 3. They have 2 power plays, but they have 3 penalty kills. So we can name the third one as well here. So the one I put together, top one, and this one, the way TK was used last year, how dangerous he is on the 2-way play. This is your best penalty killing unit. Sean Couturier is on there. I have visions in my head of Couturier springing TK loose. A weird option there would be Owen Tippett. I think would be an interesting thing. I don't think that will happen, but could be maybe experimentation. And then Cam Atkinson obviously would work there as well. And then Sanheim, Ristolainen is the D pairings. I do have the second pairing or the second unit as Noah Cates, Cam Atkinson. It could also be Scott Lawton. 100% it could be Scott Lawton, Cam Atkinson. It could also be Scott Lawton, Travis Konechny. We saw that last year, and it worked. And again, if you want to put Atkinson with Couturier, I see no issue there.
That's a
Again,
great pairing as well. Yeah.
yeah, Tyson Forrester is another guy that could be on there, surprisingly. Noah
Hathaway
Kane.
too. Hathaway, because he played
Oh,
PK
yeah,
with Washington. So
absolutely. Hathaway will 100% be on the PK. So maybe he's actually your third PK guy.
him and Lawton, I'd expect, right?
Yeah, and Ryan Paling could get some time on there too. But again, with Paling, Lawton, Cates. Now, Cates isn't great on the draw. We'll see how he is next year. That's my one caveat to this, because if he's still not great at faceoffs, but the Flyers maybe, they do a little bit of Couturier and Cates as a pairing.
That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
Or
And then,
Lawton Cates, maybe.
yeah, you could do Lawton Cates, or you could do Lawton Couturier too. There's so many options. This is actually the one area where the Flyers are okay. The D I have at Stahl and Walker as your second pairing, and then York and whoever as your third.
Probably Sealer.
Yeah, again, depending on who makes the team, but I assume that York will get less time on the PK because he'll be playing so much 5-on-5 and power play time that the more grueling PK minutes will go to the veterans, and I think it's a big reason why Mark Stahl and Sean Walker are here. So I think those be the three rotations, and I think we know who our guys being rotated in there. But there's a lot of PK options, which is especially with a healthy team. If they're not healthy, if for some reason Atkinson's not ready or Coots not ready, there are some other guys to jump in there, right? Paling jumps in immediately. Hathaway is a no-brainer. Again, you can try out Tippett, you can try out Forrester, and I didn't even think about
Joel. Some time last year.
And there's Joel Farabee too, who's also
been used there.
Yeah, who has potential to be penalty killing, like a Patrick Sharp type of player. Which, by the way, that's my prediction for this year: is the relationship of leadership to young guys will be Patrick Sharp talking to Joel Farabee, right? Like we had Briere with what's his name? We had him with Frost, similar player. Now you have similar player in
and you got Leclerc with Tippett to make him score 50.
There you go, dude. There you go. Tippett and Forrester. I actually think Forrester's game is closer to Leclerc.
Yeah, he's more of a net front guy or crash the net. But penalty kill, penalty kill, there's not much to disagree with. Like obviously Sean Couturier is going to be on your first penalty kill if he's healthy. I mean, he's Sean Couturier, he's a Selke winner. No brainer. The only thing that I think maybe we might change or we might see, and you mentioned it, is we might see Couturier, Atkinson, and Konechny, Lawton, just for the reason that, okay, Lawton and TK were so good last year, why split them up? Like, just keep them together. It works. But also, I mean, I'm interested to see Couturier and Konechny in that space too, because I think they'd work together really well as well. So, there's not much to change. And then that third I think unit maybe is where we're going to see a lot of the rotation depending on, who it performs, right? Like I think it'll be Lawton and Hathaway, but let's say they don't do the greatest potentially. Like you could see Paling sneak in there. I wouldn't, doubt it. Who knows? But I think you're right. Like at penalty kill, they seem to have a good amount of depth. And with getting Couturier and Atkinson back, I think if they are healthy, I mean, they should be much improved, right? Like I think their penalty kill did improve a bit last season off of the season before. I think it was around, finished around like 20th, so 12 away from the bottom. But I think we could expect the Flyers PK to be more middle of the pack next year than anything. Just if you actually get Couturier and Atkinson back 100%, those guys are really good penalty killers. So
this team is night and day. I'll say it again: if Coots and Atkinson are not on this team, they're at the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
If they're on this team, they're going to be about what they were last year. My guess.
Yeah.
Potentially a little bit better offensively and a little bit worse defensively.
Yeah, with the loss of Provy, obviously.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. Again, Coots and Atkinson are huge for this team. And actually, I'll wait to talk about that part, but we'll talk a little bit about captaincy too, because the names are kind of obvious. All right. Let's scroll down to, I'm sorry, actually skipped goaltending. So goaltending is a little bit weird. There are question marks right now. There's obviously the Canada thing going on. We don't know what the hell is going on there. But I just put Carter Hart and Cal Peterson in the NHL. The options I really see the Flyers going with is either Peterson or Sandstrom as backup to start the year. Again, just to start the year. I truly believe Ersson is easily the second best goaltender of this group and is NHL ready. but he is controlled, and I don't think the Flyers are interested in losing assets. So if Cal Peterson rebounds, I think they will go with him as the backup behind Carter Hart. If he is about what he was last year, not very good at either level, he will be buried in the minors, and he will be playing backup for Samuel Ersson. And Sandstrom will be in the NHL to start the year. Or there is a chance where they go Ersson and Hart, and they just try to pass Felix Sandstrom through waivers in the beginning of the year. That's the time to do it. Same with somebody like Lazinski or Zamula or even Sealer. Like, you want to do it when other teams don't have roster spots to grab these guys, right? So
other teams are passing through like enticing guys as well.
So. Exactly. Cal Peterson, nobody's touching if he goes through waivers.
100%.
So he's an easy player to waive. I know that Anthony DeMarco said that his camp was told that he's going to get a shot. Yeah, you're going to get a shot. You're the 4th ranked goaltender on this group right now. So that might, the Flyers might not agree with that, but in my eyes, that's where he's at. He's at most equal to Felix Sandstrom, and he is not where Ersson is. So he is fighting for that number 3 spot, and Ersson only is keeping these guys in the NHL because of his contract situation. So that's how I kind of see it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the goalies, it's pretty straightforward. You basically laid it out, essentially same opinion as me, Yariv. Like, I think Peterson will probably start in the NHL unless his camp is literally terrible, which it could be. I mean, who knows, right? Like, if he's really bad, it's going to be
or the other guys have great camps, which
exactly,
possible.
and they just can't
like Ersson.
They just can't kind of afford to say, well, hey, even though you had a great camp, we're not going to reward you. So I think you're right. Like, if they have amazing camps, they're going to get rewarded, obviously. What I think it comes down to is, do you want Ersson? He's still a very young goalie. So do you want him sitting for so long and not playing as often? Maybe like they'll do more of a split with him and Hart. If it's Ersson and Hart, it's possible, but who knows? I think for his development, like, you want Ersson to play as a starter as much as he can. So maybe that's the reason the Flyers lean towards starting him in the AHL, especially with the fact that you can bring him up through waivers and there's really no issues there. Obviously, a lot of this can be contingent on the Hockey Canada stuff. Like, we don't know what's happening there. We also can't make any assumptions either. So, like, at this point, I'm assuming Carter Hart is the starting goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers until otherwise. And that's, I think, the assumption that everybody should make until any further news comes out. But I think this is pretty accurate. It might be Ersson, and that just depends, backing up Hart, and that just depends on kind of his performance in camp. If he blows Torts away like he did last season, I think we can expect him up. And if Pettersson's really bad, that kind of gives Ersson even more of an opportunity too. So.
Yeah, and there will definitely be injuries, even in camp or leading up to camp. So all of these have caveats where the fact is we always come in with all these players and then not everybody's ready to play. Yeah. So have to be and could be one of the goalies. We don't know. It happens randomly. It happens over the offseason. We never know. So it's just good that they have 4 goalies, though. I'll say that. And one of which is completely safe to move up and down from the NHL to the AHL in Peterson. Nobody's going to grab that contract.
Yeah.
That might be one the Flyers try to trade out next year, eating 50%. If he can rebound his career. If he doesn't, they're going to have to either eat it or buy it out. Not last year. Yeah, he's got a lot to. He has one good season in the NHL, and they gave him a multi-year $5 million deal. Talk about desperation. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, sorry. Do you want to say something else?
No, we're good to go.
Okay. All right, so let's touch real quick on the goaltending in the AHL just because we already did it. So again, down here I have Samuel Ersson is number 1, either a combination of either Felix Sandstrom or Pettersson, I think will be number 2. And then there's still Nolan Meyer, who will be making his way up from the ECHL. He didn't get a contract renewal, so good for him. He won't be an NHL option and is not good enough to play in the NHL, but he did have a good season. So I did want to put him in there just because he exceeded expectations and he's young. So we don't know what he'll turn out to be. Maybe he'll be better. Maybe he'll be a star AHL guy. Who knows? But at least he's in the mix. But I think with Samuel Ersson there, it's like they have arguably the best goaltender in the AHL, right? Or he is one. They have one of them. Yeah,
one of the best goalies in the AHL for sure, just based on his performance. I think unless he starts in the NHL, this is pretty accurate. If he does, it's probably going to be, to be honest, Sandstrom there as a starter
Yep.
And Pedersen too, potentially, like who really knows, but we'll see. I don't know if the Flyers will be able to sneak Sandstrom through waivers. We'll have to check it out. I think it all
Mhm.
depends on other teams and their goaltending situations. Like if some other teams get hit with some injuries in the goaltending position, might be difficult to get Sandstrom through, but we'll see. Obviously the Flyers have depth at goalie, which is a good thing. So
Yeah. And the Flyers are not, I do look at these lineups and I can't help but think like, will there be PTOs, player tryouts? And for sure, I think there will
possible.
be.
Yeah.
There are other spots that can be taken. And if there's somebody better around the NHL for them, I think the Flyers will be looking for that. Because again, the Flyers are open to projects and PTOs come in, show up, you know, no contract.
You never know what will
So
happen. So
risk free. I could definitely, and with all the free agents right now, I could
yeah.
see some surprising names added to here. We saw Anisimov come on a PTO, um, and he was great for the Phantoms last year. I still don't know the situation with him, so he's not listed in here. But
Yeah, I
um,
wonder what happens there if he comes back or if he's retiring. Who
I'll be
knows?
honest with you, I don't think they asked him to come back, man. And let's go through the offense here, and you'll see
Sure.
what I'm talking about. So, also made a bunch of assumptions here. A lot of these lineup decisions are probably not accurate, but I'm kind of just winging it here. The Phantoms had a lot of changes from last year to this year, a lot. I think people won't even really recognize a lot of the players. If they were Phantoms like season ticket holders, a lot of the guys that they know are no longer here. And some of those guys were a little bit older, 27 and up, 28 and up. They're not on this team anymore. So Ule Lixell, I have its top line left winger. I have Elliot Denoye. I'm making an assumption that he's going to be playing top line. Otherwise, it probably is going to be Adam Brooks again, like he did last year. And then Bobby Brink, I think, is your top line right winger. Um, Otherwise, if they don't play that, I could see a case where Denoye, Bobby Brink are on the second line. Lixell probably will stay top line left winger, just because he was doing that all time last year, and then play with Brooks and Maruti, who both had a great year last year and
And
had
those are
injured.
your veterans,
Yeah,
basically.
they're not even that old though.
I
Brooks is
know.
27 and Maruti's just turning 26. That's kind of my point. Is like this is a young team. Like their veterans are no longer like there's no more Cal O'Reillys on this team.
Or Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. Then Brendan Fury, I have on a third line role. He did play in the top line last year. He had a great start to his pro career. I don't know exactly what he's going to be, but I put him as third line left winger playing with Avon and Samu Tuamala. I realized I didn't mention Gendron, but so Gendron could be playing as third line right winger. He is primarily a right winger, but I thought with that big shot, maybe he's somebody they want to try on the off wing just because he's such a pure shooter. Tuamala is also an offensive player. I'm not sure how good he'll be in the AHL yet, but him and Gendron, I see a little bit interchangeable. Not the same type of players, but similar type of success in their juniors career. Both offensive upside guys, and we need a spot on the left wing. And as you can see, I had to shift Tuamala or Gendron over there. So I think Gendron will play maybe a top line role, but it could end up being Tuamala. So I could easily switch Gendron and Tuamala on this list. Avon, J.R. Avon also I think could end up playing on the left side potentially if they need a winger. They could. I'm sure they would prefer to develop him as a center, but he's got so much speed. He's an amazing skater. I could see it being tried, but I do expect him to play in the middle. The fourth line, I have Rhett Gardner, the newcomer. He's actually like the veteran of the group, but I think he's 27 years old. He's a guy with still some upside. He's a pretty good physical NHL player. Could play the middle. I think he's probably going to play left wing. I don't even think he's a fourth line player in the on the Phantoms, but again, the Flyers are pretty good depth here. With all the youth, I imagine they're going to want to give them the playing time. Jordy Bellivier, I have on here. He was recently re-signed. He's an AHL only guy. Had big minutes with the Phantoms last year. I imagine he will get that again this year. Zayd Wisdom, I do expect to be playing with the Phantoms, not go back to ECHL, and probably play a physical role in the bottom six. Maybe I'm wrong. But kind of just went for that guess. And then Charlie Gerard, another ECHL, AHL borderline player, had some success with the Phantoms. I imagine he will be back. What do you think, Vasili?
Yeah. So I think for what you have set out, it's pretty accurate. I mean, you already mentioned obviously Denoye swapping with Brooks. Maruti swapping with Brink. I think that's probably the likeliest scenario if anything's going to change here. But I do expect, just looking at kind of what Briere is trying to do and the way they're trying to develop these young guys, that they're going to give the younger guys every opportunity to play as much as they can, get the most ice time they can. So I think you're going to see them in some prominent roles, as long as, I mean, their performance dictates that, right? Like if they come into camp and they don't perform well or they're struggling, then you're going to see those older guys that are, cemented in the AHL probably for the remainder of their careers, maybe step into those bigger roles on the team. But I think it all just depends on the young guys and how they perform. Like Bobby Brink, I think for sure should be top line, and be almost point per game. I think that's what the Flyers are kind of looking for from him, right? To kind of graduate to the next level eventually here. So I think they're probably looking for a big season out of Brink. Gendron, I definitely think they want to have him in a top six role too, just based on his skill set. Like if you're going to have him playing on the third and fourth line in the AHL, you might as well send him back for another overage season in the queue if that's a possibility, and let the contract slide one more year. I don't know if that's an option. I'm not a CBA contract expert here, but who knows? Like I'd imagine you're signing him to the entry level deal. You're going to try to develop him at the AHL level, get him accustomed to becoming a pro here, right? So I would think they'll have him in that bottom or top six role versus the bottom six. And then the bottom six here, I mean, Tuamal is even a guy, like, depending on how he plays, like he's supposed to be a scoring threat. So maybe they try to move him up too. Depending on what happens. I'm interested. Like he's a real speedy guy. So is JR Avon. So you're playing potentially two guys that are burners together. Like that's
They can
enticing
skate
to me.
together.
Yeah, exactly. So that's enticing to me, just the speed. Like I think this Phantoms lineup looks very speedy. If you just look at like who's here in terms of the prospects. And the fourth line makes sense, right? Like you have your career kind of AHL guys on the fourth line, plus Zayd Wisdom, who you're trying to develop into that bottom six physical role. So it makes sense to put him there. You just have to hope for Wisdom that he can kind of get back on track after more of a disappointing year last season, heading to the AHL there.
ECHL, you mean?
Or ECHL, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. All right, let's go to the D. So the D again, I think it's not as messy as the Flyers, but obviously the decisions the Flyers make will impact this D considerably. If Emil Andre's here, he's playing top pairing.
If he can, yeah.
Yeah, most likely. And I don't know, they might pair him with Grans because him and Grans have a history of playing together, and they're both
That
Swedish.
makes sense, yeah.
It's and I don't know that because Adam Yinning is also Swedish, right? So like, which I love that we have Swedish defensemen now. It's like my favorite. So what I have Victor Mete. I gave him top line left wing. I'm making that assumption because he's an NHL player. He's in the mix to make the team too. I want to make that clear. No doubt about it. He's had NHL time. I don't know his capabilities. He just seems like a player who's rushed in the NHL. He is probably the fastest defenseman we have in the organization from what I've seen, skating wise.
Really good skater.
Yeah, he's a great skater. I don't know how great he is on D. I haven't seen enough of him.
Not that great.
Yeah. So I do expect him to be AHL bound. And I thought him playing with Ronnie Adder would be a nice combination, big, strong defenseman, with a, smaller, speedier, but experienced defenseman. Then I put Adam Yinning with Huggy Grans, again, Swedish connection.
Swedes.
Yeah. Grans got an upside with scoring. Yinning is more of a stay-at-home defenseman. That's a big, big, strong pairing. And then the bottom, again, is a little bit of a crapshoot. I have Belpedio as a third pairing defenseman. I don't think he's going to be a third pairing defenseman. They used him in the top 4 last year. So maybe he plays with Yinning potentially. Just going off of the way LaPerriere used this team last year. Smolak didn't get a lot of playing time. I suspect he will just because of sheer age, but Millman is definitely going to be competing with him. Hopefully he doesn't get sent out to the ECHL again because he shouldn't be down there. He should be in the AHL at this point. He's their best defender in the ECHL. So I'd hope that he sticks. And then Ethan Sansom is the big X factor here. I don't know how good he's going to be. He could be better than Grans, potentially. So he's a guy I think is a big X factor that could move into the top 4. I think he'll definitely get playing time. He's got everything. He's got two-way game. He's got size. He's another potential steal for the Flyers. I don't know what he projects to be, but maybe bottom pairing defender in the NHL with a little bit of two-way game, maybe like a poor man's Ronnie Adder or maybe similar. Yep. Or similar to Helge Grans, honestly, very similar skill set. So, we'll see, but I think he's up there and I think he's a nice mix. And then Adam Kurashek, he just got a contract. He's an AHL player, but again, I think he'll be in the mix there. Remember, there will be injuries. So even though you see this depth in front of you now, imagine two of these guys gone because that like is typically
it's hockey. Let's be real.
Yeah, there will be like 5 or 6 dudes injured at all times between the two teams. What do you think?
The defense, it's interesting just because I don't know like what's going to happen obviously with the Flyers. Like I'd expect, I mean,
that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd expect if Andre is able to like if they work it out with the AHL and he can play in the AHL, I'd assume they probably start him there just due to like unless he obviously has a great performance in training camp, right? But I would assume they start him there just because they have a lot of guys at the NHL level that already have the experience there. You know, give this guy who only played like 10 games in the AHL a little more experience to accustom himself to the North American ice surface and just the game in North America versus the SHL. So who knows? I mean, if they could sneak some Mula through waivers, let's say he's not ready, obviously he'll probably be on the top pair too. But who knows what happens there? If both those guys are on the Flyers, though, I think this is pretty accurate, right? Like you have Adder, I think is definitely going to be in that top pair role. I think they want him just playing all situations, developing his game as best as he can. He's going to be their first option on the power play too. So I'm interested to see how he performs in that kind of role because it was usually York at the AHL level in the past. And then for the second pair there for Ginning and Grons, it makes sense. You have the two Swedes, put them together. I think if Andre does start at the AHL level, they'll probably put Grons and Andre together just due to the familiarity. And hey, sometimes when you are developing defensemen, sometimes you can develop them, especially young defensemen, as a pair together, and then you bring them up kind of and graduate them together. It's kind of what the Flyers did with Sanheim and Phil Myers a couple of years back. So that's something to look out for potentially. And then I think the bottom, the bottom pair there is just a crapshoot in the sense like Louis Belpedio, I mean, is the veteran. He's probably going to be on the team. But between Smolek, Sampson, and Millman, I think it's going to be like a competition to see who gets that last spot, essentially. Yeah. And they're all young guys and all have something to prove. So I'm interested. I mean, I do hope that Millman gets more of a shot. Like, I think that in terms of like moving the puck and play driving from the back end, there's actually a little bit of untapped potential. And so hopefully gets to show it at the AHL level. Like you were saying, you're too good for the ECHL for sure. And then for Sampson, it's interesting because he's literally like a 6th round pick. And obviously with the 6th round pick, you're not going to be expecting too much, but he's kind of broken all expectations here just with his performance for Prince George over the last few seasons in the WHL. This past season as a defenseman, he literally had a point a game, 60 points in 60 games. So he's showing that, there's offensive upside to his game. And he has the size, man. Like 6'3", listed at 185 pounds. He's a big boy, and he really uses his size to close out people defensively. So I think Sampson is an X factor, like you were saying, that could maybe jump up into the top 4 just based off how he plays in training camp and how he shows he can accustom or kind of develop his defensive game from the WHL level to the pro level.
Yeah, and they have a little bit of a cluster. I mean, there's a lot of names here.
Yeah.
Within this D, right? We talked about 8 defensemen on the Flyers.
Yeah, a lot here too.
And 9 down for the Phantoms.
I wonder as well, like maybe with some of these young guys, they plan to kind of rotate them in and out. Like
I would imagine they're definitely going to.
Yeah, so
especially for the start of the year.
Yeah, we'll see probably a bunch of young guys get some opportunities. They play well, they stay in. They don't. Here's another guy that we want to get in there and see what they're made of, right?
Totally. So the last thing I wanted to talk about here was the captaincy. We know there's not going to be a captain named, most likely, right?
Yeah.
That's what Tortorella said. But I do expect 3 A's next year. I expect this to inch towards a captain. And I think the 3 obvious ones are Scott Laughton, Sean Couturier, and Cam Atkinson.
Yeah, it's no brainer.
Cam Atkinson was a leader already for Tortorella. They're tight already. I don't know why he would assume. I'm not saying he's going to give it to him as soon as he shows up to camp, but, like after camp, I think Tort's going to have no problem acknowledging Cam Atkinson as a leader on this team. I think Sean Couturier is a leader on this team, and I think Tort's going to fall in love with him. And I think Laughton's already the guy, and Torts already loves him. And I think those are our veterans. If you look at the offensive core, I mean, Garrett Hathaway included, but he's brand new. Atkinson knows his team has been here. Coots has been here. Laughton's been here. 2 of those guys were developed in-house. They're all defensively responsible. They all have a two-way upside. They all have an edge to them. I don't know. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think it's pretty self-evident. Just like
Could be
when you look,
TK too, I guess.
that's the only other guy I was going to mention. Like, it's
Yeah.
pretty evident that, I mean, it's going to be Couture's had the A in the past. They're going to give him an A if he's healthy. Like, Atkinson's been a leader for Torch of the past, had an A in the past in Columbus. He's going to get the A if he's healthy. Lawton had the only A last season. So it just makes sense, those three. The only other guy, like you're saying, I think maybe could be Konechny, just because he's one of the younger guys. You might want to give it to, like,
Could be. I
one of
guess.
the younger guys on the team, but
I guess we also should include just for. I'm sorry to cut you off, but there is Mark Stahl.
yeah, I
But he
just
is a
don't
newcomer.
expect. I just don't expect him because of the newcomer, and I think they're going to try to trade him at the deadline.
Yeah.
So, like, why give him an A when he's probably not going to be
The
around?
relationship with Torts is the
Yeah,
only,
exactly.
and there's not a lot of leadership on the back end. Is the only
So you're
so
right. Maybe.
there's Stahl, there's Walker. I think is 0% chance, not zero, but
Yeah,
10,
I
5%
don't think
chance.
Sanheim's getting an A either. So
No, but Risto. I mean, maybe Risto, but I don't think so. I think it really is those three forwards
maybe
that we
Konechny.
mentioned. All those guys around 30, and the whole thing about Atkinson only has 2 years left on his deal. Um, he won't be wearing that A forever, even if he gets one. So I'll say that as well. Where the other two seem like they're going to be here longer term. Same with Scott Lawton. Yeah. All right. Anything else to say about that?
No, that was a fun exercise. We got to kind of do a little bit of a
Yeah.
prediction, and maybe we'll do another one kind of during training camp when
Yeah.
we have more of this laid out, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna do another full like org depth chart thing in August, and we'll announce that after it comes out. All right, let's do our last segment. We'll talk about some NHL talk, and one thing that I talked about, and we'll start with this. So Edmonton is obviously in the race for Erik Karlsson, but I just threw out an interesting idea that what about Patrick Kane going to Edmonton? And a long-term deal, no. I don't think he'd even want to go there long-term. And I don't think he wants to play in Edmonton. But contract space isn't great right now. And I think a lot of these superstars, they might be looking at, larger deals like money, but 1 year deals.
Not term, yeah.
Yeah. And then just like other players are waiting for that cap to go up, and then they can sign a multi-year deal, assuming they still have it. A guy like Patrick Kane theoretically could bet on himself. He goes and plays with Draisaitl and McDavid. I mean, your numbers are going to skyrocket in comparison. And then he can go and get a much larger number the following year and shows he still has it. So just one of those scenarios I threw out there. And the Erik Karlsson thing, obviously, maybe the most interesting, just because I feel like that's just the ripple effect. And if they get Karlsson, I mean, it's awesome for them, but it's not going to fix their defensive problem. They're just double downing on offense, which is cool. And that's why I thought of the Patrick Kane thing. So I was like, if you're going to double down on offense, I was like, there's a guy who's free, who has a pedigree and has, I think 2 Stanley Cups. Was it 2 or 3?
3 Stanley Cups.
3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
3 Stanley Cups. Sorry.
Fucking Chicago.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
But for Kane, like we were talking about this before we started the show, and I was really interested in this idea that you brought up, Yariv, just because think about like McDavid, Kane, Draisaitl on one power play unit together. It's kind of mind blowing, just like the offense they could create, just the creativity and some of the plays you would see. And it's not like Kane's bad or anything. Like, think about it. Before this season, 2021, he had 92 points in 78 games. Last season, he had 57 points in like 75 games or 74 games. So it's still not too shabby. And he was playing on a really, really bad Chicago team. So I'd imagine you put him back with McDavid, he's probably right around a point a game once again. But it'll be interesting to see where Kane goes. Like, I know he's a guy who's definitely not going to be signing in the summer. He already said, because he was having, I think he had some injury problems, so he had a surgery. So I think he was saying that he's going to wait until the beginning of training camp or a month into the season to even sign. I think the deadline to sign is somewhere in December. So expect for that to be maybe either into the season or just before training camp or something. But that'll be interesting to see where he goes. Like, it's going to be a contender, but Edmonton hasn't really been mentioned, obviously, because, I mean, he's an American player. you
They don't
know,
want to go to Canada,
yeah, exactly, right.
but
But like
it is the best player in the world.
the chance of playing with McDavid, I think, might
That
overshadow that.
for a year again,
Yeah,
if he's willing to take a 1 year deal, and that goes for Tarasenko as well. Like any one of these guys, Matt Dumba, any one of these guys, if they're willing to take a 1 year deal and go play in a place that maybe they don't want to
Dumba,
live in,
yeah,
you know,
Dumba. I'm kind of surprised never got signed. Just looking at like how shit this
I think he just
UFA.
wants a lot of money.
He probably does, but just like I figured, like this UFA D market stinks. There's gonna be a team who's desperate. They're gonna pay this guy. Nobody has. So like maybe GMs are learning from their mistakes with the cap. But I'm surprised that he's left. I'm surprised Tarasenko's left too. I thought somebody would nab him already, but I think he wants a lot of money.
Yeah,
And based on where he's at in his career, I don't know if teams are willing to give the money and the term. I think it's one or the other. You're either getting the term and you're not getting any money, or you're getting money and you're getting no term.
yeah.
So we'll see where it lands. I mean, Karlsson's the most interesting now, just because, like, okay, San Jose said they're going to trade him. He said he wants to get traded.
I think he's going to trade during the season,
I am kind of leaning towards that now as
like
well.
trade deadline.
Yeah, because now that Carolina signed DeAngelo, I think that kind of pulls them out. I think the other rumor destinations were like Seattle, Pittsburgh. They're saying the Leafs. I don't understand how that would work cap wise. Everybody's going to the Leafs though,
Yeah,
nonetheless, right? Like, but yeah, I don't know. I think Pittsburgh is a pretty good destination. Maybe Seattle would make sense though, because like they're on the rise. They have a decent defense. You add Karlsson to the mix there. I think they have cap space too, right? Like you add
yeah.
Karlsson to the mix there, that
The
could bring them
big
to the
name
next.
for
That
them
could bring them
too.
to the next level. Like you have Vince Dunn, you have
That's
Adam
a good point.
Larson. So like, I think maybe Seattle's the front runner just in terms of like where I look at it
They
on
have the
paper.
assets.
Yeah, you look at it on paper, like where does he fit the best? Think about it. Carolina doesn't really make any fucking sense. Like look at all the defensemen that they have, and we already did this thing with Brent
I
Burns
like that
before.
actually. I like what you're saying a lot. You're right. I think
They,
you're right.
they they already did the thing with Burns before in San Jose. It didn't work. You're gonna put them together again. It's not gonna work, man. Like it just hasn't worked before. Pittsburgh doesn't make any sense because you have Letang, who basically is like what Karlsson already does. You have him there. He already does that for you. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna have Karlsson or Letang not on the first power play unit. You're gonna have them play together on the first power play unit. Like, I don't know if the mix really works there. I think Seattle makes the most sense. But you know what? There could be teams that we have no idea about that are interested as well,
Yeah.
right? Like I think Buffalo would make sense to me. Like you get Karlsson in there with Darlene. That's pretty fucking
Hmm.
interesting. I don't know. I don't know what all these teams' cap situations look like. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah. Seattle did
Uh,
add Dumoulin in the end, so they went more
okay.
defensive, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. What's Seattle's depth chart look like? Do you have that open, Yuri?
I have their cap friendly
Okay.
open. Do you want
I'm
to
interested. Just yeah,
pull
if
it
you could
up?
pull it up. I'm just interested to see what their D looks like, just in case here.
It lacks like a big offensive guy, but they do have Vincent Dunn.
And they just signed him to like a $7.4 million deal for the
Yeah.
next 7-8 years here. So I
We're-
hey, like I could see it potentially. Like if they get Karlsson, let's say he's making 11.5, they get him at 7 or 8 or 7 or 6 million. Like it could happen, maybe.
Yeah.
But I just don't
What a
think that.
jump for Vincent Dunn, huh?
Yeah, right. He was really, really good for them last year. I just think it doesn't make sense for like Carolina. It doesn't really make sense for Pittsburgh. Like Seattle, though, kind of makes sense. Even for Edmonton, it doesn't make sense. Like they need defense. You need defense first guys on their back and not offense first guys, right? Like, but if you're going all offense, what's their cap? What's their cap look like? Do they have cap space?
They have like 5 something million available right now, I think.
So they could make it work. They could make it work if they're getting Karlsson like 6-7 million. They send somebody back with a little bit of money. So that's interesting to me. Anything else just in terms of like free agency, random NHL stuff before we end here?
Honestly, I'm a little surprised that it kind of stopped. There's so many players. I feeling that they'll be like either it'll be peppered throughout the summer, but why aren't these guys getting signed yet?
It's
You know?
weird. It's weird, especially with guys that usually it's the opposite, right? Like you see all the big name guys go quick, and then it's
Yeah.
like the depth guys that stagger in throughout the offseason. Whereas this offseason, it's almost the opposite. Like you could argue Kane and Tarasenko are the two biggest free agents just based on their pedigree and what they've done in their career.
Yeah.
Both cup winners, both like, you know, Kane's been a multiple 100-point guy. Tarasenko multiple 50 points or 50-goal seasons. They're not signed, which is kind of crazy. But it's the cap.
Crazy.
Yeah, there's no cap space for these guys to get paid, and they still want to get their money, and I don't blame them. So it's interesting. I'm interested to see where Tarasenko lands, Kane lands, Karlsson lands. I think you're right on Karlsson that he's going to probably get traded in season, maybe even at the deadline. I just don't think it's going to unfold as quick as we think here.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a minute, and it's annoying, but like teams with cap space going into next year that are good, Nashville, Buffalo, Edmonton's got a little bit right now.
Seattle.
Boston obviously has a little bit. I mean,
yeah, Bergeron retired. We didn't mention that, but
yeah, Patrice Bergeron retiring after so long. It's gonna be weird without him in the league.
Dude, 6 Selke Trophy wins for him. Like, how fucking crazy is that?
Should be called the Bergeron Trophy.
Oh, I was saying if they ever update the names, I was talking to some of my buddies, like it should be called the Bergeron Trophy,
Yeah,
literally.
dude.
The Art Ross should be the Gretzky, all that stuff, right?
You know who's another team that I could be in the mix for one of these guys?
Who?
Columbus.
Oh, I like that. Maybe not Karlsson because they're back end stacked, but
Not
Kane,
Karlsson, but the forwards.
Kane, Tarasenko, I could see it.
Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
on a 1-year deal, because they're just trying to be competitive again, right?
Make
That's
the
why
playoffs. Yeah.
And
Hey, man, you get Patrick Kane and Johnny Gaudreau cooking up together.
Patrick Laine is there
Patrick
still.
Laine, yeah.
They have young talent. They have
Fantilli's in
Provorov. They have
there,
Werenski. They have Fantilli. I mean,
they could be enticing, yeah, for some of
yeah,
those guys.
they're going. And again, if you believe that they're going to be better, and you'd be like, well, at least I get to play in the playoffs. You know, if they get a Tarasenko or a Patrick Kane, like a Patrick Kane probably would help them a lot. You know, just play driving.
Power play.
Yeah. So.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Let's call it a show. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
No, just thanks for supporting, obviously, as we go through the summer. I mean, there's not a lot to talk about Flyers-wise, so we appreciate you listening into Summer Flyers podcast, despite the fact there's no hockey. And just continue to keep an eye out on flyersnitty-gritty.com for articles. I'm doing some news articles for Daily Faceoff as well, so just like daily news around the NHL, so keep an eye out for some of that. I'll post it out on my Twitter. And just keep going to the website for Flyers Nitty Gritty. It's summer, but we still have content and we have articles coming out all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you everybody for listening. Just a reminder to like, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. Follow us on Spotify, on iTunes. Should be on everything. I haven't checked everything. I know we're not on Amazon Music, which surprised me, but we should be everywhere. Please, rate us, do all that stuff. It's amazing. And again, thank you all for commenting. We're trying to read them all, and it's been amazing. So thank you all for listening. I'm sure it's going to get a little quiet here for the summer, but again, we'll be going all through the summer, and then we'll be ramping back up when things get exciting again. Again, thank you all for listening. We love you, and remember, always stay gritty.